But sometimes the most meaningful support comes when we finally understand what's beneath the surface. Today on Our Space, Finding Maggie, how my transgender daughter's identity journey unearthed my wife's hidden grief. Family is supposed to be your safe harbor, the place where you're accepted without question, loved without condition. But what happens when one person's journey to authentic self collides with another's unhealed wounds? What happens when the act of becoming who you truly are inadvertently reopens scars in someone you love? I never imagined I'd find myself caught between my daughter's right to define herself and my wife's struggle to let go of a past that no longer exists. But that's exactly where I found myself on a seemingly ordinary evening that changed everything. Let me start from the beginning. Maybe you'll understand. 2 years ago, our family underwent a transformation that tested the boundaries of our love, patience, and understanding. Our son told us that she was, in fact, our daughter. I'd like to say we handled it perfectly, that we immediately embraced her with open arms and unwavering support. But that wouldn't be the truth. We stumbled. We made mistakes. We had to unlearn years of assumptions and expectations. It wasn't easy for any of us, but especially not for our daughter, who had to navigate her own identity while simultaneously guiding her imperfect parents through their learning curve. My wife struggled more than I did, particularly with the name change. Our daughter's birth name had special significance to my wife, a connection to someone beloved and lost, and letting go of it felt like another layer of grief she wasn't prepared to face. The therapist warned us early on. Our daughter might try several names before finding one that truly fit her identity. But when she quickly settled on Bethany and stuck with it for 6 months, we thought we'd dodged that particular challenge. Then came high school, and with it, her desire for a completely fresh start. Ellie lasted a few months before she switched to Liz. Each time, my wife and I would stumble over the adjustment. I'd catch myself, apologize, and move forward. My wife, though, she'd roll her eyes, make sarcastic comments, create tension where there didn't need to be any. I knew she was struggling, but I couldn't understand why the name itself was such a flashpoint when she'd been making progress, accepting everything else about our daughter's transition. Then came the breaking point. My wife overheard our daughter on a video call with friends who were calling her Maggie, another name we hadn't heard before. When confronted, our daughter admitted she'd been trying it out with friends for a while but had been afraid to tell us. Afraid of exactly the reaction she got. My wife walking away with a dismissive, "Fine, whatever." For 2 weeks, we attempted to adjust to Maggie, the tension in our home thick enough to cut with a knife, until finally, during a family Zoom call with my sister and nephews, it all came to a head. When my nephew accidentally called our daughter by her previous name, and my sister corrected him, my wife snapped. "Oh, let him call her what he wants," she said, her voice dripping with sarcasm. "She'll have a new one next season anyway." The call ended abruptly. Our daughter fled to her room in tears. And I finally confronted my wife about behavior that had gone from unsupportive to actively harmful. "She can't keep changing names like this," my wife argued. "It's hard enough without all these changes. She's just doing it for attention." But I knew better. I knew our daughter wasn't changing her name on a whim or for attention. She was searching for herself, for the name that would feel like coming home. And my wife's ridicule was only making that search more painful. We argued long into the night, neither of us really hearing the other, both of us exhausted by a journey neither of us had been prepared for. That night, lying awake and questioning everything, I finally asked myself what I hadn't before. Why was the name specifically such a trigger for my wife when she had been making real efforts in other areas? What was it about this particular aspect of our daughter's transition that kept reopening wounds I thought were healing? The answer came the next morning when we sat down to talk. Every time she changes her name, my wife finally admitted, her voice breaking. It's like my dad died all over again. And suddenly everything made sense. Our daughter had been named after my wife's father, a beloved man who had passed away just before she was born. Our daughter had his eyes, his smile, the same dimples when she laughed. For my wife, that name had been a living memorial, a daily reminder of her father's continuing presence in our lives. And each time our daughter changed her name, my wife wasn't just adjusting to a new identity. She was grieving her father all over again. It wasn't about rejection. It wasn't about stubbornness. It was about grief. Deep, complicated grief that had never been fully processed and was now entangled with our daughter's journey in ways none of us had recognized. Later that day, we sat down with our daughter. My wife apologized with tears streaming down her face. She explained about her grandfather, about the grief that had been hiding beneath her reactions. Our daughter, our incredible, compassionate daughter, hugged her mother tight and told her she understood. There were no quick fixes in that moment, no magical solutions that would make everything instantly better. But there was understanding. There was truth. There was the beginning of a new path forward. I wish I could say everything's perfect now. It's not. My wife is considering therapy to work through her grief. Grief that's been complicated by our daughter's transition and her own struggle to separate the two experiences. Our daughter is still settling into Maggie, though she says this name finally feels right in a way none of the others did. There are still slip-ups, still moments of tension. But now, at least, we understand what's beneath them. We understand that sometimes a name carries more than identity. It carries history, memory, connection, and changing it means more than just learning to call someone something new. Last night, I walked past our daughter's room and heard laughter. Peeking in, I saw her and my wife huddled over the Switch, engaged in an intense round of Mario Kart. "You're going down, Maggie," my wife called out as her character pulled ahead. "In your dreams, Mom," our daughter shot back, executing a perfect maneuver that sent my wife's character spinning off the track. They were trash-talking and laughing and, for that moment at least, just being mother and daughter. No tension. No grief, just love. Am I still worried about what's ahead? Of course. We're not at the finish line. We're barely past the starting gate. My wife's grief won't disappear overnight. Our daughter's journey of self-discovery may still have surprises in store. But for the first time in a long while, I'm not lying awake wondering if I'm the asshole for standing up for our daughter. Instead, I'm lying awake thinking about how complex love can be, how it can be simultaneously fragile and unbreakable, how it can twist around our grief and our joy until we can't tell where one ends and the other begins. Have you ever found yourself caught between two people you love, each hurting in ways you couldn't fully understand? Have you discovered that what looks like rejection on the surface is actually pain underneath? How did you navigate those waters? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more. Until next time, remember that sometimes understanding the why behind someone's actions is the first step toward healing the hurt those actions have caused.